Hi, welcome to Chapter 1 of this mixed media album class. What we're going to do in this first chapter is we're going to start right out with the cover. This is actually my favorite technique that you're going to learn. So we're going to start out with the best, right? What we're going to do is take the cover, we're going to use this lace paper, and we're going to just smear this gold texture paste all over the top of it. Then we're going to go back in, add some color using the Color Shine. I'm using blush and the cranberry and mixing it with some opaque matte medium. You could also mix that with some white paint if you don't have the medium. We are then going to layer on some embellishments. We're going to use this little wood word that comes in the kit, and then also these metal charms on here as well. We're going to make it look like it all just goes on there, and then we're going to do just a little bit of stamping. So one thing that I want to tell you before we even get started is that in between each one of these layers, you're going to want to make sure that your mediums are dry. That way you can build on top of the mediums rather than kind of mixing it up and making a mess. All right, so let's get started by first taking this laser cut paper and laying it right on top of the album. And you'll notice that it doesn't totally cover it. And so you'll kind of end up with this top and bottom that is kind of a solid. It looks a little bit weird when you start out, but totally doesn't matter. All right, we're going to use quite a bit of this texture paste. This is good stuff. It is so amazing. The metallic is very shiny. It dries pretty quickly, but it gives you even more shine as it dries. It almost looks a little bit plasticky. What we want to make sure here is that we don't get this on too thick. So really, our texture paste will be the thickness of this lace paper. In this case, we're going to use this lace paper as a stencil. So once we spread the texture paste completely all over it, then we're going to lift and remove the stencil, just leaving the design. So I'm using this scraper. This is a scraper that comes in the screen print kits. You can also use a piece of chipboard or an old credit card or whatever you might have around. I'm just going to grab up some of this texture paste, and I'm just going to start smearing it over the top. Now you can see here, see how you can, the lace paper here is still visible, and that's because the texture paste is not thicker than the design, okay? If it gets thicker, then we're talking about major dry time problems, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and let me just talk to this. When you kind of go down at a sharper angle, that's when you kind of deliver the texture paste, all right? So right here, I'm going down at a lower angle, and I can deliver the texture paste right into where I need it. You see that? But when I take it to a higher angle, that's when I'm scraping it. So it's kind of a delivery and then a scraping it. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. The only thing, like I said, to really think about is making sure that it's not too thick, but you do want to make sure that it's in there, that that all the little designed, oops, I dropped it. All the little areas are filled up. Okay, now, it's a good idea for this class to keep lots of paper towels on hand. All right, so now I'm going to lift the paper right off. So do not let it dry while it's sitting inside the texture paste. We're actually going to use this again in our project. So we're going to do just a little bit of cleanup. I'm going to go in and kind of around some of these edges where there's some excess. I'm just going to remove that. All right, and then I'm going to clean up my mess here on my mat. I do recommend that you clean up the texture paste from your workstation or whatever mat. I'm using a Heidi Swapp mat. Go ahead and clean it up as you go because it dries pretty hard. Okay, as you're waiting for your texture paste to dry, I want you to go ahead and grab your little wood word. It comes in the cinch kit. And what I'm going to have you do is take a little bit of that opaque magic medium and also a little bit of your color shine. Now you can use anything you like, any color you like, and that's one of the fun things about the mixed media process is it really can be, you know, what your personal style and what your look and what you like best. So I'm going to mix it together. You can see that I just sprayed the color shine, both colors of color shine right on into the magic medium, and I'm just going to, I'm using a what's this called, a magic makeup sponge, right? And I'm just kind of giving it a little bit of color, and I'm kind of blotting it on here. I've got a lighter color pink and kind of a little bit darker color pink. If you mix it all together, you really end up with one color. You can see that I kind of only mixed a portion of it together so that I still had some of the blush and I still have some of the cranberry that I can dip into, but I also have this beautiful pink color to use as well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a little bit of the texture paste that I have left over, and my texture paste isn't all the way dry, so I'm kind of going to set it into there. The texture paste on the bottom and that little extra piece of texture paste will also kind of adhere it onto my cover. Now I'm going to do the same thing with these fun charms. These are from my Wanderlust collection. One is an octagonal shape and the other one is a flag shape. This one says Create Magic and this one says Hello Sunshine. I'm going to do the same thing. Kind of just going to add some paint onto these. I'm just kind of, I wanted to just get away from the real metallic look of them. And I'm just going to stick a little more texture paste behind them. And I'm sticking it just kind of right around the opening of the book, of the window, kind of framing it a little bit, if you will. All right. Now, as I kind of put this texture paste on and I'm kind of pressing it into the texture paste, like I mentioned, it's not all the way dry. And I kind of want them to dry and fuse. All right. Really kind of apply some pressure so that you know that they're going to stay put when your album kind of gets bumped around as people look at it and enjoy it. All right, I'm going to just, now that it's kind of secure in place here, I'm going to just add a little bit more color. And yeah, that looks great. Now I'm just going to add a little heat tool to dry it. Okay, I want to just kind of show you a little bit of some before and after. So here you can see this is just my very base layer. I have the texture paste down. You can see that design really beautifully. You can see that I've also gone ahead and added those 3D embellishments. And now I just want to add a little bit more color and even a little bit more distressing. So, do you remember in the very beginning how I said you just have to make sure that your layers are kind of dry as you're working in between layers so that they don't mix when you don't want them to do. What I'm going to do is just add a little layer, and I'm going to use the T Color Shine. And this is just going to add a little bit of kind of an aged look to it. All right, doesn't take too much. And I'm going to grab a paper towel, kind of just blend that tea color in just a little here and there. It's just kind of giving it a little bit darker color. All right. And I like how that's kind of filled in a little bit. It's given me a little bit of a tarnishy look even. All right. Now, you know me, and because I kind of love that pink and gold vibe, so what I did was just here with my extra paint and color shine mixture, I'm going in and I'm kind of colorizing the outside edges. And I'm going to kind of keep that gold flare nice and bright there on the inside. I'm kind of just adding some color around these edges. Now also, if you remember what I said about not completely mixing it up, then I ended up with some areas that still kind of have some of that dark color that I can dip into. And then as I blend it around, it gives me a little bit of variation in that color. All right. You can still add more on top of those charms if you wanted to adjust the color or even blend it a little bit more. All right, that's looking great. I'm going to go ahead and dry this layer. Okay, now I'm just going to show you the subtle differences by really using maybe a little bit more of the dark pink. Here in this case, when I added the tea over the top, it really popped out that gold color because of the iridescence in the color shine. And I really like that contrast that I'm getting in the design between the craft, the chipboard of the background, and that really shiny nature of the color, the texture medium. So at this point, I want to just show you a couple more things that I like to add to kind of give some finishing touches. Now, I just kind of have a box here of some of my favorite stamps, and I brought with me my brown ink pad. And what I'm going to do first of all is just kind of add some brown ink around the edges. You can use a distressing tool to do this if application might be a little easier. All right, that looks great. And then I have one of my very favorite stamps, and I'll just show it to you. It has kind of this scripty stamp on here. This is kind of a variety of stamps on this, which I really like. And I'm just going to go ahead and stick it right on my ink pad cover for ease. And I just like to add a little touch of the scripty vibe. Don't worry, I stamped a little upside down. You can't really tell. It's kind of more of just a texture that you're wanting. And I like to apply that kind of on the edges a little bit. Tap it down on that woodward. I would recommend that you use, I love the archival ink because it is permanent. All right, that looks great. All right, perfect. Now the last touch that I wanted to show you is, I kind of have it stashed in here. This is an adhesive rub-on. And I'm just going to take a little portion of it. And I like to use this with my foil. And for ease, I'm just grabbing some of my mink foil. And this is a brand new roll, so I just need a little teeny bit of foil for this technique. All right, these adhesive rub-ons, which are also available in the Wanderlust collection. And I'm just going to use my scraper. You can use any of your rub-on or kind of little burnishing tools. And it's a little bit tricky only because obviously my surface isn't really flat. But I'm just going to rub on this adhesive, these little adhesive dots. And what's cool about this is it's adhesive on both sides. Let's see if it will go on if I'm dry enough. You've got to really make sure that your surface is dry for them to transfer. All right, so now all I have to do is take my piece of foil and I just kind of apply a little bit of pressure. You can even kind of rub it with this burnishing tool. You can even stick it through the mink with the 0 setting, and that gives it just the right amount of pressure. And as I remove this, you'll be able to see that those little adhesive dots transfer the foil perfectly, and it just gives me that little pop of a foily finish. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more of these little foil dots. All right, so our cover is done. You can go ahead and add any little bit, extra little touches. I love adding a little bit of stickles. I love to even sand it to give it a little bit more distressed look. But our cover is done, and that is the end of chapter 1.